Do you want to learn over a decade's worth of no bullshit practical sex advice that'll transform you into the best sex any woman has ever had? Well, I've spent over a decade being paid to play hide the sausage, you know what I mean, in one form or another. So here in this video are the most important principles to remember when it comes to being great in bed. Number 17 in particular is something that has changed the relationships of every single man I have taught it to without exception. And it is so easy to implement, it's ridiculous. Number 1, sex is a reward for her, not for you. Too many guys go into relationships or go into interactions with women in general with the default assumption that sex is somehow a reward for him. And what this leads to is it leads to really supplicative behaviors on the man's part. He'll do things to try and appease a woman so that he can get the reward of sex. When you flip that dynamic completely on its head and you view sex as something that you reward a woman with for her good behavior, first of all, to actually truly embrace this frame of mind and this perspective, you have to actually believe that you are truly good in bed, and thus sleeping with you is a reward for any woman because it's that damn good. And second of all, this flipping of the script is going to change fundamentally the way that you interact with women, and more importantly, the kinds of behaviors that you will and will not tolerate from a woman. If sex is a reward for her, well then she should only get sex if she's been behaving correctly. But this has a more profound impact directly in the bedroom, because what it means is that you can then play this teasing game with her, and by having her work for the sex, it makes it far more enjoyable and pleasurable for her in the long run. Number 2, give yourself permission to fail. You see, most guys will screw themselves up with boner issues thanks to performance anxiety or with premature ejaculation issues because they work themselves up into this nervous, anxious state because they're so hell-bent on delivering a perfect 10 out of 10 performance. If you give yourself permission to fail, ironically, you are far less likely to fail. When you approach sex with that attitude of really not giving a shit as much, if you perform or live up to some magical expectation, that takes so much of the pressure off you that it allows you to actually give a far better performance. You're more present in the moment, you're not in your head anymore, and your woman can feel this, and she will enjoy the sex far greater, and you'll enjoy the sex far greater, and you'll actually rise to the occasion far easier too. Number 3, the selfish pervert frame of mind. This helps guys overcome any anxiety or nervousness that they may be feeling in the bedroom, but it also gives them this attitude of not putting her orgasm and her pleasure on too much of a pedestal. Because ironically, when you desperately need a woman to orgasm, all that does is put her in her head. If she can sense that off of you, she can feel that you are so desperate to make her come that it's causing, performance issues, then she's going to get nervous and anxious herself. Whatever you feel, she feels. Women are kind of these emotional mirrors. Like when a guy is feeling anxious and nervous, she will start to feel anxious and nervous around him. So if you desperately need her to orgasm, it's going to make it harder for her to orgasm in the first place because she's going to be put in her head and she's going to feel all that pressure. So the selfish pervert frame of mind is this idea that you are using her as your sexual muse. So you're selfishly being perverted. So you're doing all the kinds of naughty, kinky, perverted things you want to in the bedroom with her, and she is inspiring that lust out of you. But the very fact that you're doing it from a more selfish perspective means she is not under pressure now to deliver some kind of expectation to you, aka an orgasm. She can actually relax and be more in the moment. Now, it's not selfish in the sense of you bust a nut in 30 seconds and you roll over and go to sleep, but it's selfish and perverted together. So you're combining that perversion and lust from a selfish point of view. And women really get off on being the source of a man's arousal. Women really get off on this idea of being sexy. The female ego is heavily tied into that, and quite often the female orgasm is heavily tied into that as well. Now this kind of links into number 4, which is the paradox of pleasing her, and these two are somewhat similar. So the idea is basically the more you need to please her, the less likely you actually are to get her off. Again, goes back to the idea of you're putting her on a pedestal too much, you're putting her into her head, and you're setting her up for failure really because you're putting all this pressure on her. Women want to relax and switch their brain brain off in the bedroom. They want you to lead, they want you to be dominant, and allow her to get into her submissive feminine frame of mind and state of being, really. And by needing to please her, by needing to get her off, by needing to have her orgasm, all you're doing is switching her brain on, making her self-conscious, making her think about it, putting a lot of pressure on her, and making it way, way, way harder for her to actually come. Number 5, if you're not experienced, you can at least be enthusiastic. Enthusiasm is one of the most powerful tools in the bedroom. And that's what creates those passionate nights, which just go on and on, endless hours of lovemaking. The enthusiasm is what allows those great moments to happen. Enthusiasm, I believe, is the sexiest thing a woman can display at all. In every single characteristic, every single trait a woman could bring to the bedroom, enthusiasm is without a doubt the best. Now, for you as a guy, enthusiasm is also a very powerful tool for you to bring into the bedroom too, because women want to feel beautiful. No matter how objectively gorgeous a woman is, she has some insecurities. And by you being enthusiastic in the bedroom like that, you alleviate those insecurities and you make her feel truly sexy. And when a woman feels sexy, she is far more likely to enjoy the experience with you and to climax from the experience with you. Number 6, and this one might be a little bit controversial for everyone to hear, but jealousy amplifies arousal for women. And what do I mean by that? Well, for practical examples, a woman will orgasm harder and faster if she thinks you are cheating on her. And in fact, I can verify this through personal experience and through the experience of friends, that if she knows that you have been sleeping with other women, she orgasms faster and harder. Now, do with this information however you will. I'm not telling you to go out and cheat on your wife or your girlfriend or anything like that. But understand that when a woman feels jealousy, when a woman sees that you are a sexy, attractive man and other women want to have sex with you, other women find you attractive, this amplifies her arousal for you. And so even though you might not be actually cheating on her, if she thinks that you are, if somehow in her head she's created this scenario that you are cheating on her behind her back, she's actually going to orgasm harder and faster. By the way, guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. This channel is full of practical sex advice just like this. And if you'd like, leave a comment down below with whichever one of these insights you have found the most useful. Number 7, don't be silent. Make some noise. Women actually love to hear a man enjoying himself in the bedroom. In fact, I've asked multiple women this before on air, on podcasts and things, and every single one of them has told me the exact same thing. And I've asked them, if you're having sex with a guy and he makes no noise whatsoever, how does that make you feel? And they say, I feel like I am not doing a good job. So to alleviate that sense of insecurity, you should be making noise in the bedroom as a guy. And women get off on it. Women love the idea of being arousing. They love the idea of getting their man off. Don't deprive her of that. Number 8, lead her through the sexual experience. You should be the one in control. You're like the conductor of this sexual orchestra. Imagine you're dancing the tango. The man has to lead, the woman has to follow. She doesn't know how to play her role properly if you're not leading and guiding her through it. Like I said before, women love to switch their brain off when it comes to the bedroom and just let their man take control and take her through this roller coaster experience, rather than having you ask her what she likes, what she wants to do, what position to do next, expecting her to have some initiative and take the lead. You should be taking control of all that. Number 9, foreplay starts when your clothes are still on. Foreplay actually can start as soon as the text message before you've even met on the first date. You should consider all kinds of flirtation, or really all kinds of communication with your woman as foreplay, or as opportunities for foreplay. We're not just talking about, kissing and fondling and things like this when you're in like a private secluded setting. We're talking things like vocal tonality, eye contact, and the instructions and directions you're giving her leading up to actually being around her face to face. These all contribute to the journey you're taking her on, which inevitably concludes with sex. But all of that is this dance, and women enjoy the dance. Men are perfectly happy to just go straight to the act thereof. Guys would be happy to kind of forego all of that dance and that foreplay and just get down to sex and bust a nut. But women love that dance. So everything building up to the act of actually getting physical with one another is basically foreplay. And if you approach it as such, you'll be able able to arouse her far easier. And by the time you get her clothes off, she is going to be dripping wet anyway. And this ties into number 10, and that is her mind is her most powerful sexual organ. So directing her thoughts is super powerful. Dirty talk is obviously a perfect way of doing this during sex. Guiding her attention, telling her what to focus on, amplifying her sensations by describing what you're already doing to her, dropping some perverted language during the act of sex. All of these things, they help her to, one, switch off her logical mind, and two, to allow you to lead that interaction, allow you to lead her mind through these peaks and troughs of arousal in the sex. Number 11, deadlifts, sprints, and the two-handed kettlebell swing. These are your meat and potatoes of sexual performance exercises. They all work on basically creating power in the hip thrust. They also work on creating endurance in that hip thrusting motion. If you just did deadlifts, two-handed kettlebell swings, and sprints, you have all the building blocks you really need to thrust as long as you want and as hard as you want and be good in the physical component of sex. Number 12, sexual geometry. Hitting the sweet spot is all about angles and pressure. If you just make a few tiny changes to the angles of different sex positions, depending upon the angle that your penis points at, add this equation together, right? The angle of your dick versus the angle of where her pussy is, basically. This is the sexual geometry. But if you can play around with those angles with her hips, the way they are tilted and pointed, you can hit spots at far better angles than you typically do with just basic bitch missionary. Because YouTube would take me down if I actually explained this and demonstrated this in more graphic detail, there's only so much I can put on YouTube for free. So if you want to go a bit deeper into some of these topics and get a far more concrete and practical demonstration on them, check out some of the links down below in the description. Number 13, she is not some delicate flower. She wants you to absolutely ravage her like some kind of untamed beast. Imagine a Roman legionnaire coming back after spending years campaigning in the German forest slaughtering people. He comes back and he sees his wife after 2 years. And what's the first thing he's going to do to her? He's going to absolutely go to town on it. He's not going to lay some petals down, gently caress her, lay her down, massage her. He's not going to do any of that crap. He's going to take her like a man. He's going to have some balls to it. He's going to have some passion with it. Women can take a lot more pounding, shall we say, than most guys give them credit for. Think of it this way. A baby has to come out of that thing. It can withstand a bit of beating up, you know what I mean? So take that into consideration when you're making love. There is a time and a place for, slower paced, more gentle stuff, but in general, women just want a man to fuck them properly, for God's sake. They just want a man to take them and absolutely wreck that shit. Number 14, predictability kills desire. Some of the absolute worst sex advice I have ever fucking heard. And this always comes from marriage counselors and therapists and shit like that. Schedule a date night. Schedule your intimacy. Friday night, we have sex because the kids go to bed early or some shit like that. That is the antithesis of romance. There is no romance novel that a woman has ever read where the man schedules out and plans when he's going to fuck her. This doesn't happen in any of these romancing novels. And women read them because they're exciting, because they're unpredictable, because they're spontaneous and they're passionate. So you will do far better to inject that spontaneity and passion back into your sex life instead of scheduling things consistently. So what do I mean by that? Take her randomly when the opportunity arises. Send her over the kitchen counter. When she's cleaning up the house, just pick her up off her feet and throw her onto the bed. These kinds of things where she's not expecting it, not predicting it, make you fall in love with each other again. They bring back that honeymoon phase feeling into the bedroom again with you and your missus. Do not have regular, predictable, scheduled sex. And also, by the way, I'll add, the predictability also goes into the way you guys fuck too. If you're just 5 minutes a missionary and that's what you do consistently every single time, that's gonna start to get old pretty fucking quickly for both you and for her. Number 15, a man's capacity for violence is sexually arousing. Emphasis on the word capacity. I'm not saying to be violent, but a man who does not have the capacity for violence at all is fundamentally a weak man. He cannot impose his physical will on the world around him. A practical way of how men can show their capacity for violence in the bedroom is some of these kinkier, more aggressive, more dominant sex acts. So things like pulling hair, things like spanking, things like correctly, erotically choking a woman, things like BDSM, things like whipping, spanking, flogging, things like bondage, tying her up, blindfolding her, controlling her body in ways like this, manhandling her. All of these are very highly arousing to women because they show her that you have the capacity to be violent. You are more physically imposing and stronger than she is. And if you are stronger than she is, that means you can protect her. And that's why it's arousing. It goes deep into the female psychology. If she's with a man who she knows can protect her, it is highly arousing. Number 16, voyeurism and exhibitionism. The female sexual ego is narcissistic. A mirror will do so much work for you in the bedroom, it's not even funny. It's just a complete cheat code. So if you could put a mirror somewhere in your bedroom, I'd highly recommend it. And this is a secret that most guys don't know, but this is highly consistent across women. Women masturbate narcissistically. What do I mean by that? When a woman is masturbating, she is thinking about herself. When dudes jerk off, right, you're probably thinking about some chick, but when women masturbate, they imagine themselves. They are like the object of the masturbation, of the thought in the masturbation, right? So they masturbate narcissistically. What this tells you is that things like voyeurism and exhibitionism are highly arousing to women, and that's where a mirror can actually act as both of those simultaneously, because if you're having sex with her and she can see you fucking her in the mirror, one, she is watching herself, so she is both the voyeur and the exhibitionist simultaneously, so you're ticking two boxes at once. Number 17, deny her orgasm. Telling a woman no at some point during sex is something that has probably never ever happened to the woman you are with. Women are happiest when they are submitting to a man that they respect, and if you can bring a woman right to the verge of orgasm and then pull out, stop what you're doing, pull back and deny it to her, this will drive her mad. Drive her mad in a good way. And what it's also doing is you're building her up to this sort of climactic peak and you're letting her come down again, and then the next time you build her up straight afterwards, it's going to go even higher. And the orgasm is going to be more intense. But you can do this once, twice, multiple times. You can build her up and deny her as many times as you like. But this creates this very sexually arousing dynamic of her submitting to you, of you being in control of her orgasm, you being in control of her body. Most guys have never tried this. It is so incredibly easy to do. If you already know how to get your woman to orgasm a certain way, I would highly recommend you play with this. Every single guy I've taught this to, he has reported back it has been a fantastic addition to his relationship. And once the sex is done outside the relationship, you watch the dynamic in your relationship change as she starts to adopt the role of being submissive to you and you being more and more and more in control. Now, of course, you can't do any of these things if you can't maintain a boner for long enough. So check out this video over here where I talk about how to get strong erections reliably and consistently.